So the session will run from 9:30 until our break at 12. But before we begin, we want to let you all know that this meeting is going to be recorded. So please do what you need to do to feel as comfortable as possible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Aaron. Not sure if Alfred is here. You don't see him.
Santi, I believe he's still in a meeting until 10.
Got it. Okay, sounds good. So when he comes in, we will definitely make some time to introduce him. He's our director. Definitely the person who, before anyone was talking about transfer, he made sure that at UCLA, that conversation was taking place. So for certain, we will make sure to introduce him once he comes in. All right. Move on.
Everyone, my name is Claudia Salcedo, and I'm the administrative coordinator for CCCP. And as we continue with today's amazing webinar, we wanted to invite you all to check out our website. So you can look, scan the QR code, and in the website, you'll find the agenda. You'll be able to download some Zoom backgrounds like the cool one that Aaron and Santi have, the one that I have. So if you get a chance, go ahead and scan that QR code and download a Zoom background and read the bios. And also you'll get a chance to be connected to our social media, our group me, etc. So I invite you all to look at our website that Santi put together. So thank you all.
You're welcome. And see.
And all of this, I think it's me, I'm next again. So without further ado, I'd like to go ahead and introduce you all to the amazing team, the planning committee that helped put together this event. And this webinar was really a student-led effort. So I'd really like to give a shout out to all of our student peer advisors that are here with us today. So without further ado, I'd like to start off by introducing Maxine. So if Maxine, you wanna provide a little bit more information about who you are, where you transferred from, etc.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for being here. Very excited to have you. My name is Maxine, and I actually graduated from UCLA in June. So I'm an alumni now, I guess. At UCLA, I double majored in poli-sci and communications, and I transferred from Sacramento City College in Northern California. I think I saw someone in the chat with that as well. I also worked as a tour guide at UCLA when I was there, and I served as chief of staff to the transfer student representative in our undergrad student government. So those are a couple of things I did, as well as being a CCCP advisor. Pass it on to Santi now.
I love it how she's just, those are just a few things that I did. And those are amazing things you were doing. Thank you, Maxine, for just being a voice and a leader on our campus. Definitely appreciate that. My name is Santiago Bernal, as I mentioned, and actually that picture was taken 3 or 4 years ago when I was in El Salvador. So I am immigrant from El Salvador, came to the US in the 80s, and went to school, middle school, what you all call middle school, but what we used to call junior high when I was in back in the 1980s. Yes, I went to school in the 1900s, and yeah, definitely no internet at that point. So, but I actually went to school, middle school, to Mount Vernon Junior High, which is in the area called Country Club, which did not look like any country club. But I was also right next to Koreatown, and in what became eventually the area where a lot of Central Americans now reside, Little Central America. And just simply having that background of being a first generation college student, being someone who selected a major. I came into UCLA and was admitted to UCLA as an engineers student in directly from high school, and experiencing the fact that I did not like the engineering. I only chose that because I didn't know any better at that point. And being able to switch majors, having all of those experiences, definitely, I think, helped me in that growth process. So as you are moving along at the community college, and as you are exploring, all the different majors, I definitely want to give you at this point is to just keep your mind open, not saying that, of course, the major that you may want is exactly the one that you should be in, but just keeping that mind open to all the possibilities is a great thing. And we're talking about all the possibilities. I'm going to pass it on now to Aaron.
All right, thank you all for the nice introductions. Hello, everybody. My name's Aaron. I am a rising fourth year or second year transfer student at UCLA. I transferred from Citrus College, and I am majoring in communication. I saw a lot of communication majors in the chat, so y'all ever have any questions about it, like, feel free to reach out always. And on campus, I'm involved with the Southeast Asian Campus Learning Education for Retention Center, the United Khmer students. I'm Cambodian, so I'm a Southeast Asian. I'm also involved with the Research Assessment and Evaluation Unit, where I'm a research assistant. And right now I'm doing a summer internship with the APAPA, which is the Asian Pacific and Public Affairs organization. So really involved, and like Santi was echoing, the journey not always linear, and especially because of the model minority myth. So actually, before I went to community college, I went to UC San Diego out of high school for computer science, and like it wasn't, I soon came to find out that it wasn't the right path for me, and it's just a lot of money and stress, and just not knowing how to take care of myself as a first gen college student, not knowing the resources I needed. And so, eventually I dropped out and decided to go to community college. And, from there, I came to CCCP, and, that's when I learned like how to name my identity, how to find community, and how to learn more about the resources and be better prepared for the university level. And so, I welcome all of you and thank you for coming and sharing space with us. So I'll pass it on to Claudia again.
I know, again, right? I know the order is a little weird. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Diverse Asian Americans webinar. We are so happy and excited to be here. As I mentioned, my name is Claudia Salcedo. I'm the administrative coordinator for CCCP. And like Santi, I first came in, well, no, like who else? Somebody else was a poli-sci major. I came in as a freshman, not knowing. I came in undeclared, then poli-sci. And I told myself, I'm not going to major in Chicana Chicano studies. Well, I ended up majoring in Chicana Chicano studies, graduated from UCLA in 2005. And then on top of that, I went on and got a master's in Chicana Chicano studies from Cal State Northridge. Very proud to have majored in ethnic studies, very transformative experience to be able to study your identity and to be able to feel empowered as a Chicana, as a woman of color. But while at UCLA, I was involved, and I did all of my involvement around the Chicanx, Latinx, and actually students of color and student retention. So I was the campus retention committee chairperson and got to work with a diverse group of students on campus. So in addition to that, what else did I do? I did a lot of work. I was actually the founder, along with Santi and Alfred, of the Raza Transfer Days. So that was really where my work with transfer students began almost 15, 16, 17 years ago. And let's see, what else can I tell you? After I graduated from UCLA, I also worked doing retention work with the Chicanx, Latinx community. And once I left, went to school. And in the process of obtaining my master's degree, I actually was fortunate and blessed to be hired at CCCP. So 10 years ago, almost 10 years ago, I started working with CCCP as the administrative coordinator. I love doing this work and so happy to be here. And a few years ago, I actually got my doctorate degree in education. So here I am and very happy to be here, very fortunate and blessed to be able to plan this webinar and really doing very minimal work because as I mentioned earlier, Maxine and Aaron and all of the student staff did all of the amazing work and brought together. I mean, every single day I try to help them out and they were already on it. So thank you all, amazing planning committee. And so with that, I will move on to the next committee member. I believe there's Luca. So if you want to introduce yourself, Luca.
Hi everyone, my names are Luca and Isa. My pronouns are they, he, and I'm a rising senior at UCLA. I transferred from East Los Angeles College in 2020 and I'm majoring in philosophy and double minoring in both LGBTQ studies and gender studies. During my time at ELAC, I was a CCCP scholar, and now I'm working within CCCP as a peer advisor for Los Angeles Valley College. I am also involved with the LGBTQ Campus Resource Center as the QT BIPOC Programming Assistant, as well as Transgender UCLA Pride as a board member. So yeah, feel free to reach out for any resources regarding QT BIPOC and LGBTQ identities.
And then we'll have Sophie introduce.
Hey everybody, my name is Sophie. I technically just graduated UCLA. I majored in English, minored in African American Studies. I was a CCCP scholar. I went to Los Angeles Pierce College and transferred into UCLA in 2019. And then I was a peer advisor for 2 years. And I feel like every time someone asks me to talk about myself, I forget everything about myself. I was a Ralph Bunche scholar. I did undergraduate research. I volunteered with UniCamp at UCLA. I was like a volunteer peer transfer advisor for like people who just transferred into UCLA. Yeah, and I'm excited to be here with everybody. Good morning.
Gloria, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi, Gloria.
Hello. Hi, everyone. My name is Gloria, and I'm a rising senior at UCLA, double majoring in psychology and education and social transformation. I transferred from Cerritos College and Long Beach City College. I saw some of you on the chat. Really happy that you're here. I transferred last fall, and I was also a participant of CCCP during summer 2019. And now I'm working as a peer advisor. And at UCLA, I'm very involved in research. I currently work as a research assistant for a clinical psychology lab. And I was also a research scholar through the UCLA Research Fellows Program through the Undergraduate Research Center. And I'm also involved with the UCLA Office of Student Resilience to foster everyday well-being to UCLA students as a student ambassador. So feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions about the things that I've said. And I'm super happy to be here sharing space with all of you. So thank you for being here. Oh, I'm not sure if Daniel is
And
here.
yes, Daniel.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, Daniel, I think I saw him earlier, so.
Yes.
Yes, Daniel, if you want to introduce yourself.
Of course. Hi, everyone. Good morning. I'm the communications coordinator for CCCP. I'm a second-year transfer student from East Los Angeles College, and I'm also a former CCCP scholar. I believe it was for 2019, Site Light. I'm a sociology major and anthropology and education minor, and I'm excited to be here, and thank you all for being here with us today as well.
Thank you all. And this is your planning committee, everyone. So these are the people that made today's webinar happen. And without further ado, I'd like to introduce our director. I think Alfred is here. So if Alfred, you want to go ahead and do the welcome and introduce yourself.
Good morning, everyone. As Claudia said, my name is Alfred. I am the Assistant Dean and I direct the Center for Community College Partnerships. We're very excited to see you here today. We have a great program. First of all, thanks to the Planning Committee for developing this critical and important session. Just wanted to make sure that those of you who are prospective students continue to work with us, because we are here to provide support and services to help your transition and journey to a university as smooth as it can possibly be. We do a lot of work with a lot of different communities, and it is really important that we provide whatever service we can to help you on that journey. And some of you are returning advisees, and some of you are new. Whatever the case may be, we just want to welcome you and thank you for joining us here. We want to be able to work with you throughout the year, so make sure you sign up to be a CCCP program member, and we'll continue to provide webinars and in some cases in-person events that we will have at local community colleges and at UCLA throughout the year. So welcome and have a great day. Ask a lot of questions. Thank you. That was the end.
Alfred. Thank you so much for that welcome. And as I mentioned earlier today, we are definitely here today because there was Alfred ensuring that the voices of transfer students were being included in the conversation within the university, outside of the university. And, you know, is, as I always mention, I was from one of our former AAPI directors, programs like this do not fall out of the sky and just happen. You know, they are intentional. They require work, they require advocacy, they require vision, and Alfred was that person for sure to ensure that, you know, we had programs like this today. So thank you, Alfred. We also want to introduce the rest of our full-time staff. I see Blanca in the room, so I'm gonna ask her if she can introduce herself.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this Your Space. My name is Blanca Cantera-Hershey. I'm the office coordinator as well as the communications co-coordinator. So I'm part of the social media team, and I'm very glad to be here. I'm a former CCCP scholar, so I can attest to how pivotal this program can be to, you know, the transformation of a community college student. I transferred from Santa Monica College and graduated from UCLA in 2014 and did a lot of work. And then finally I came back to the nest about 4 years ago. So I'm just glad to be continuing to do the work, you know, to support transfer students and pay it forward. Welcome you all, and I hope you have a wonderful time today.
Thank you, Blanca. And now let me see who is it. Frank Alicious.
Yes, good morning, everyone, and welcome to your webinar. So my name is Frank Castorena Jr. I am a program coordinator here for the Center for Community College Partnerships, or CCCP, or CCCP, however you want to call us. I am a proud transfer student, first-gen student. I transferred from East Los Angeles College to UCLA. At UCLA, I double majored in sociology and Chicano studies. After graduating from UCLA, I applied to grad school and ended up going to the other school with the other colors, the other majors. You know what it is. I majored in. I got my master's in social work. So welcome once again and enjoy the day.
Thank you, Frank, and you know we forgive you. Okay, go ahead, Jewel.
Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all to share space with you all. Thank you for joining us on a Wednesday morning. My name is Jewel Bourne. I am one of the program coordinators here at the Center for Community College Partnerships, particularly overseeing our partnership with Los Angeles Valley College. I also have the privilege and pleasure to serve as the communications co-lead with Blanca and Daniel, working on our social media and whatnot. I'm a very proud transfer student, first-gen student, transferred from Santa Monica College. I'm a proud product of CCP. And transferred to UCLA, did my undergraduate degrees in English and Gender Studies, and then went off and got a master's degree at CSUN in higher education. And I'm currently a rising second-year PhD student at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign in higher education, continuing to do the work that was fostered in me by being a scholar and making sure that transfer students, particularly transfer students of color and historically excluded populations, have access to community college and higher education because of the work that has been done here. So it is a privilege and a pleasure to be with you all today. This is your space. Please ask questions, please engage. And we want to help serve your needs and make sure that you're getting everything that you need. So thank you again for being here, and thank you for sharing space and community with us. Have a great day, everyone.
Okay, I don't see, oh, Perla.
Sorry, on my computer time. I'm so sorry. Hi, everyone. My name is Perla. Let me turn on my computer. Hi, everyone. My name is Perla Partida, and I'm one of the coordinators for Los Angeles City College and Los Angeles Harbor College. I'm extremely happy to be here. I myself am a transfer student, like most of my team here, and I transferred from Mount San Antonio College, so go Mounties. From there, I was able to transfer to UCLA, and I just graduated 2 months ago from the other school with just like Frank. So go Brojans. And I'm just happy to be here and excited for all of y'all to be here today. I myself was a scholar and then a peer advisor for CCP, and I know that CCP changed my life, and I know it will change all of yours. So very happy for all of you to be here today.
Thank you so much. And I believe that's all the people who are here. We also have Alberto Moreno, who is at Pierce College. And we also have Gabi, who is definitely assisting us with the summer work and the application. So definitely Gabi Ariel, who oversees our partnership with Southwest and West LA College. Kelly, who oversees our partnership with ELAC. And Aurelia, who oversees our STEM initiatives as well. So a great team. Thank you again. This cannot happen without a team, and we're fortunate enough to have such a great team. So thank you for that. And now passing it on to Luca.
So the Center for Community College Partnerships at UCLA acknowledges the Tongva peoples as the traditional land caretakers of the Los Angeles Basin South Channel Islands, and are grateful to have the opportunity to work for the indigenous peoples in this place. As a land grant institution, we pay our respects to ancestors, elders, our relatives, past, present, and emerging. Now, I would like to provide a quick trigger warning for the next 3 slides because we will be mentioning violence, xenophobia, and death. So feel free to step away if you need to, lower the volume for the next 3 slides, or do whatever you need to do to feel comfortable and safe.
To our students and colleagues in the Black community and across the diaspora, we stand with you. You are a valued and important member of our campus and off-campus family. We all need to acknowledge the challenges and work to change them. We must work together as people of color and allies, people who are concerned about our future to eliminate these systematic disparities. We take a stand today and always because Black lives matter.
And here, sorry, and here is our statement against the AAPI violence. CCCP condemns hateful acts of violence, harassment, and rhetoric targeting against Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders, and Daisy Americans. Since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been an alarming increase in the discrimination and violence perpetrated on the APIDA community. These acts of violence are nothing new. We're disturbed by these xenophobic, racially motivated attacks. CCCP stands in solidarity with all of our students, colleagues, and community partners who experience marginalization and threat. Stop AAPI hate.
So now I'll discuss the COVID-19 pandemic, its impact, and how it relates, or how UCLA transfer students have been affected by it. So in regard to COVID-19's overall impact, the death rate for Latina people is 21%, and for Black people is 9% higher statewide. Case rate for communities with a median income of less than 40K is 37% higher statewide. Across the state, community college students have the largest negative impact, but particularly men of color who have experienced the largest enrollment drops. In regard to UCLA and our return to campus, for fall 2021, close to 80% of courses will be offered in person, as well as most labs. UC will require anyone accessing UC facilities or in-person UC programs to be fully vaccinated prior to the fall term. UCLA is planning for on-campus housing this fall and expects to offer housing to first-year transfers and to a higher percentage of second-year transfers. Lastly, Los Angeles mandates masks into effect, or already mandated masks back into effect, July 17th.
All right, and I get to talk a little bit about what critical race theory is in education and how we use that as a framework in the work that we do. I think as we were mentioning, the number of things that the disparities that we can see within those different groups, how a pandemic impacts different communities, how we all experience education differently depending not only where we are, but as who we are. I think that's definitely a starting point for us as an institution that is trying to not only develop new knowledge, right? Not only be able to be innovative and create paradigms to address the current issues in all kinds of different fields. One of the things that obviously is part of that process is being able to have what we call a framework, or the way in which we are basically viewing the world, right? So all of us have a framework that is informed by both our experiences and our lack of experiences as well, right? So theory, in essence, is basically how we try to explain what's going on around us, and from that point, be able to make decisions about what is the best way to address certain challenges and situations. In this case, what critical race theory is asserting is that as part of the historical context in the US, and the fact that in so many different ways it was built upon an idea of one group of people being superior than others. That idea permeated all the institutions within that were created within this nation. So it also asserts that race and racisms permeate the educational system, and that because of that, when we look, for example, at this chart, where we see the difference in terms of this different Asian subgroups listed in here, we can see there's a difference in the in the educational attainment, right? So there is a way, and there has been a way in which the way that these disparities will be explained would be that certain groups may not have what it takes. They may not have intellectually what is needed. And definitely that was, definitely has been a way to explain this in the past. They may also assert that the communities are not interested in specific values or have what we call the social capital to attain at the levels that other groups do, right? So that's what we will call deficit thinking. When we think that a specific group lacks something, and therefore that's why they don't achieve what they other groups do, right? As a CRT framework being used within this, we will challenge that. So the second tenet is challenge of the dominant ideology. We will challenge the fact that it is because these groups lack something that that this disparity exists. And what we will point out is that it is more of the systematic barriers, the ways in which policy practices are applied, that and the pre-existing disparities within our society that prevent groups from moving in the same manner throughout the educational pipeline. The other aspect of CRT is that we value the experiential knowledge, meaning that we don't necessarily only look at the observation of those with a bachelor's or PhD or researchers. I mean, of course we look at that, but also we value what you bring. Your own contribution to our work is important. For us, we centralize your experiences because we know that you are the one actually going through this process. So it is important to us to understand and to hear and to listen to what you have to say, and to value that that experience. The next aspect of CRT is that it's interdisciplinary and intersectionality, meaning that we're not looking at it from only one perspective. We're looking at it from a variety of perspectives, and I'm so happy this work came out today. Maxine, who's one of our peer advisors, brought up a word when we're doing the planning that I just love, and we should talk about intersectional solidarity. That's when we're looking at all these different identities, all these different groups, and that we find common ground to do the work that needs to be done. So I truly love that, and this definitely is going to be a big part of the webinar today. And then lastly, CRT tells us that it can not only be conversations that we have at the university, but that we actually have to put it into practice, into action. Oops.
Another really big aspect of CRT was produced by Dr. Tara Yasso. Her theory of community cultural wealth basically asserts that students of color have these 7 types of community cultural wealth: linguistic, aspirational, familial, social, navigational, resistant, and cultural. So going along similar lines of finding value in our lived experiences, in our cultural and social capital, and asserting that they add to our experiences and give us strength and are the reason why we are successful, instead of something that restricts us.
Alrighty, so thank y'all for those wonderful introductions to our frameworks. Really love that slide with all the breakdown of the different Asian communities. So our goal at CCP is to always create a safe environment and space where everyone can feel supported and be vulnerable. So we have some community guidelines that will help with that today. Our first guideline is netiquette. We want to respect the online community, so please make sure your mic is muted. And feel free to click on the speaker view if you really want to, put your focus into whoever's speaking. Also, please don't be afraid to ask questions. You can ask any questions you have in the chat, and you'll definitely get an opportunity to ask some when we begin our Q&A sessions. Step in, step back is another guideline, which means if you're taking space to share, make sure you're also making space for others to share. We also like to say one diva, one mic. So when one person is speaking, everybody should be listening. It really everybody just takes turns, listening actively and sharing if they want to. And then another important guideline is, one skill we are all learning in our college education, which is to challenge the ideas, not the messenger. So it's okay if you disagree with anything we say here. That's really part of critical thinking, but just be sure to communicate that disagreement in a civil and respectful way. So those are some community guidelines that we want y'all to really follow today as we pursue through this webinar.
Thank you, Aaron.
All right, y'all. Oh, sorry. All right, y'all. I'm going to go over the agenda. So session 1 will be focusing on mental health and identity. We just finished up the welcome. We will be going into our keynote speaker, Cherry. She basically changed my life. She's the reason I'm here right now, so I'm excited for that. And then we will be following up with mental health in the Asian American communities during the pandemic and anti-Asian racism with Max, who is a graduate student researcher at CARE. And then we will be going into AAPI self-care and allyship with Maxine, myself, and Luca. And then we will have a lunch break from 12 to 1 p.m. Okay. And then for session 2, we will be discussing intersectional solidarity and community. And we will start off with Asian American Studies and School of Education faculty and graduate student panel, which myself and Luca will be facilitating. And then we'll move into the UCLA student leadership panel, which myself and Luca will also be facilitating. And then we will do a raffle, which is going to be exciting. And then a closing and an optional session at the end from 3:15 to 4 p.m. Peer advisor circle.
Am I supposed to just start?
No, Santi's doing the introduction.
Of course you are, Cherry. Come on.
Sorry, I'm into I was on mute. Again, Cherry. I'm excited about this part because I asked Cherry if it was okay for me to do her bio. So and you can see her bio in the webpage as well. but here's what I kind of came up with. Some of it may be true, some of it may not be true. That's just how we roll with Cherry. We sometimes make up stuff. So Cherry Lai would probably tell you first that she's currently a sociology instructor and a faculty at College of the District, having earned her master's degree in sociology at CSUN and after completing her bachelor's at UCLA. Perhaps she will also tell you about her interest in race, family, educational theory, and research methods. She gets to the point of the story, bluntly and accurately. However, his story has been anything but to the point. And it is exactly because he took so many terms that the multiple intersecting lives that she has lived defy a story with just one point: a scholar, an immigrant, a mother, a traveler, a foodie, a friend, an innovator, and sometimes a opinion that once, if you believe her, a professional badminton player in Hong Kong, Cherry migrated with her mother to the US, carrying with her the memories of her grandmother and becoming a mother herself early in life. Her college career came only after a culinary degree and owning an ice cream store. As she became the single parent for her 2 children, Cherry eventually found her way to East Los Angeles College, becoming a CCCP scholar, and after transferring, a formidable peer advisor. Unlike many other student parents, Cherry took advantage of all the different student experiences at UCLA, including being chosen as one of 4 students for an exchange program that focuses on social justice in Amsterdam, and then traveling through Europe on her own. After graduating from UCLA, she joined the full-time staff at CCCP, where she left her mark in so many ways, but more to the point, as she would prefer, she created the first parenting student program that intentionally celebrates both identities, parent and student. Her work around creating and nurturing a parenting affirming culture at places like UCLA is now being carried on by the many parenting students at many different institutions throughout the US. Cherry also challenged the notions of a monolithic Asian community, and CCCP is indebted to her for pushing us beyond the model minority myth and had to be intentional about including the diverse voices, experiences, challenges, and triumphs that provide the complex, multi-layered transfer narratives. Definitely not a simple story. Thank you, Cherry.
Thank you. That was my entire presentation. Now I'm done, everyone. Thank you so much for the warm welcome. It's so great to be back in this space. I remember actually leading this webinar around the same time this year. So today, my agenda for you is I'm gonna share my personal journey with you all for the first half. And then I definitely want to talk about anti-racism, anti-Asian racism issues that exist and how we can continue the work of social justice, right? So I will just share my slide, and please feel free to put the questions in. I'll try to respond to them as I see them, but I am very happy to be in this space, and thank you so much for asking me to be a keynote. Can I please be made co-host so I can share screen?
Done.
Thank you. Alrighty. So, again, my name is Cherry Lai. Thank you for having me. I always like to start with some fun facts, and I think Santi gave you some of that already. And it is true, I am definitely a foodie and I love desserts. Most of my colleagues at CCCP can confirm that I always start and end my meal with desserts. I am a big fan of Yayoi Kusuma's artwork. If you have not checked it out, she has an infinity room at the Broad, and she has some pieces at LACMA. So definitely check her out if you like polka dots, patterns, and installation arts. And it is true that I love badminton, and I think I have not shared this with anyone before, but I have been playing since I was 15 years old, and I used to compete in the US Junior Open, and I actually placed 4th in US women's singles in the junior division. But I continue to play now and continue to compete. So my goal is to see if I can make it to the Tokyo Masters game next year to compete in like the senior category. And then, sorry, so I want to start with some fun facts before we jump into it. To tell you a little bit about myself, why I'm here today, here's my kind of timeline in working in higher education. As Santi said, I actually worked as a peer advisor in 2013 for about 2 years for my journey there. And then I became a program coordinator that oversees the Peers College Partnership in 2016. During that time, I have been involved with the STEM programs, the Diverse Asian American Student Experience, Student Parenting Program. There was a lot of advocacy work that I was able to do with the help of Alfred and Santi and the team at CCCP. Actually, prior to being a peer advisor, I want to bring up that I was also a CCCP scholar a year before that. So you can see I kind of have a long journey with CCCP at UCLA. And it was last year I completed my, in 2019, I completed my master's degree. And in 2020, I joined the faculty in teaching sociology. And really that is my passion. That has always been a goal of mine since I transferred to UCLA. So this is, I owe it to CCCP, and here I am today with you on a Wednesday morning. This is missing a picture, but it is okay. So I want to share a little bit about my personal college journey with you all. I actually started at Pasadena City College as a business administration major, but then I eventually graduated from East Los Angeles College. Should have been an East Los Angeles College image. And graduated with 2 associate degree in social science and the humanities. So I'm a proud product of the California Community College system. And then I transferred to UCLA as a sociology major. And I eventually also double majored in Asian American studies. Once I was done at UCLA, I completed my master's in sociology at CSUN. So I was a Lancer, a Husky, a Bruin, and a Matador. I claim all of those identity. Now, if I just talk about higher education, it would seem like a pretty typical journey, right? There's this transfer process that happened. I got my college degree and got my graduate degree. Here are some of the advantages that I have had that helped me reach this journey. And I do ask that you also reflect on your own privileges, our own privileges, as we're going through this journey. So here are some, either they're real or perceived privileges. First of all, I am an able-bodied woman, so I often do not encounter accessibility issues in terms of visual aid or viewing videos. There is a model minority stereotype that gives me the benefit of the doubt in higher education, as East Asian Americans are overrepresented in higher ed. I am a cisgender woman. My biology aligns with my gender identity. I enjoy the benefits of heteronormativity. Having an education, having the opportunity to pursue an education is actually a privilege, no matter how difficult that journey might be. And citizenship, I am a naturalized citizen, so that gives me the privilege of being able to qualify for financial aid and other scholarships. So again, it is difficult to talk about our own privilege when we're in these spaces, but we must be able to recognize this so that we find intersectionality across our community. So here are some of my perceived and real privileges, embodying all of these elements. But here are my visible and invisible intersectional identities. As Santi was talking about through critical race theory, we must also use an intersectional framework to look at in which space do we have power and in which space do we not. So I am of working class, and this is a difficult definition. I've actually always thought that I was coming from middle class, but because my parents had declared bankruptcy twice in their life, actually, that it has impacted my own education in a way that people don't really talk about, right? We think of entrepreneurship as something that's grand and a middle class dream kind of thing. But I realized that as I go through higher education, my parents were actually were forced entrepreneurs, meaning that they did not have any other skills but to become entrepreneurs. So, when I visited Amsterdam on that exchange program, we were studying Black Europe. But one of the things that I was interested in is understanding how Asians are doing in the Netherlands. And the response that I got at that time was, oh, the Asians are fine. They all operate restaurants. As if owning a restaurant or running a restaurant is the epitome of what Asians can achieve in the Netherlands. So, yeah, I'm a proud first generation college student, but I really did not have anyone to tell me how to navigate the college system. I didn't understand what the hidden curriculum of meeting with the faculty was. I didn't know when college deadline was. Just not understanding how to navigate the process. So as a first gen student, I did not know the existence of EOP&S at UCLA College until the semester prior to transfer. But by that time, I couldn't qualify for it because I was over units already. So there are some of the resources that I missed out on in terms of book grants, in terms of specific counseling services that I missed out on, even care. And as a student, a single parent, I did not access services that was available to me. And then I returned to college a little bit later on, and as a single mother or a student parent, I was inundated with family responsibility and really trying to hide that identity as a single mother because there's such a stigma that's attached to single motherhood in higher education, or actually in anywhere. So oftentimes student parents will hide the identity in hope that they will not get judged or negative stigmatized for that identity. But what I've learned over time is that it's an empowerment tool that we bring so much more experience as student parents into the institution. Like I said, new traditional student, I want to define this term. This term, you will probably usually hear non-traditional student. So students who enter or re-enter college after the age of 25 are usually considered non-traditional students. And I want to change that term and claim that term, and we could just call ourselves new traditional students and say that this is a new tradition rather than a non-tradition. Believe it or not, I started college right before my 30th birthday. So if anybody told you that it is too late to pursue in higher education, I will tell them that they're wrong. And as an Asian immigrant, there's this perpetual foreignness that I have always dealt with. I know that I didn't grow up with Goldilocks and the Three Bears, for example, and I didn't read a lot of the classics growing up. I also understand that there's a lot of cultural differences when I was going through higher education. Growing up in Hong Kong, growing up in a Chinese immigrant family, there is much more of a collectivist culture rather than the more American individualistic culture. And it was really hard for me to ask questions in the classroom, for example, or challenge authority, either when I'm going to the doctor or being able to, more often than not, if there's something that happens in the Asian community, we're not very likely to report it to the police. It's depending on your immigrant status also. So there's that as an Asian immigrant. And then I know that I had Asian American in my privilege, but it is also a wedge. The model minority myth, it is a disadvantage, a wedge between, the Asian and white spaces. We fight racism in white spaces, but at the same time, there's a lack of belonging in the people and the communities of colors, because we're also fighting racism on both ends, not fighting, facing racism on both ends, because they're based on the model minority myth. Now, there is also, because Asians are deemed doing well in school, you will often find that there's a lack of institutional support for Asian Americans who do not fit the model minority myth. So as a working class, first gen, single mother, older student, and an immigrant student, I rarely found support that was directly catered to my identity as an Asian American. And I have to find solidarity in other communities like CCCP, who see my struggles as a systematic struggle rather than just a particular group struggling. And another thing is that there is a lack of representation in leadership and in government. So oftentimes being Asian American is that, well, they're doing well in terms of jobs, but because of the lack of representation, policies are also often not framed to suit Asian American in that sense. So combine all of that identity, I want to tell you about my actual college journey. Because my parents actually declared bankruptcy right when I was coming out of high school, I actually started part-time at Pasadena City College right after high school, working full-time and attending school part-time to help my family responsibilities. And then I spent a year and a half at Pasadena City College, and I realized that I just couldn't do school anymore. My family needs me, and I went into what we called entrepreneurship. So between Pasadena City College and East LA College, I had a 10-year gap. In between those 10 years, I have worked in restaurants, I have worked in sales, I have owned internet cafes, I have owned a Cold Stone Creamery, I have also, worked in different part-time jobs, just trying to raise 2 kids also. So in between that years, I also became a parent and then a single mother and went on to raise the kids. And at some point in this journey, my daughter tells me, Mom, I never see you anymore. And this is me putting in all the hours to work, because no matter how hard I work, I just can't seem to make ends meet. And that's when I realized I was in forced entrepreneurship. My prospects was not looking so great. So that's when I decided that, okay, I think I'm gonna have to go back to college and figure some things out. Maybe just get a 9 to 5 so I get to spend time with my kids instead of working 12, 14-hour days. So I started at UCLA as a part-time student, and think about this. I haven't written an essay in 10 years. I haven't done math in 10 years. Everything seems difficult. And a faculty in my Asian American Studies class at ELAC called me into office hours and said, how long have you not written a paper? Is English your first language? And it really hurts, because even though it's not, I thought I was writing good paper. And then we got more comfortable. And in the second time I see this faculty, he said, do you know what the poverty rate is for a single mother without a college degree who is raising 2 kids? Now, I don't remember the exact percentage. Don't quote me on this, but it was an alarming 80 to 90%. And when I heard that, that kind of lit a fire behind me and said, oh my God, I really need to rethink this, because I actually went into the community college just thinking that I was going to get an associate degree and not going to do much more with that. And then it is at the same time I encountered the CCCP program. And the program that I did was called Site Plus. So I actually get to take a course at UCLA and be a UCLA student for 6 weeks. And through that experience, I realized that, you know what, I do have what it takes. And the program showed me some the transfer roadmap, what I'm able to do with the resources that's available. How do I enter the honors program so I qualify for special scholarships? How do I be more competitive in terms of applying as a sociology major and an Asian American Studies major? There's just a lot of hidden curriculum that I learned through the program. So I did only to this program in my transfer process. And then, of course, being at UCLA, I was able to, because of the full scholarships, I was able to fully take advantage of education. I was able to study at University of Chicago, travel to Amsterdam for the study abroad program, study Chinese with a scholarship from the Department of Education. It was a blast at UCLA. And then once I transitioned out of UCLA, there was not as much resources for graduate school, but I enrolled at CSUN to get my master's degree in sociology. But because of my intersectional identity as a working class student, as a student parent, instead of completing the programs in 2 years, I actually took 3. And I actually took on an additional year of student loan, all while working 2 jobs as I am pursuing this master's degree. So if we think about our community college journey as a 2-year experience, it took me 4 years. And if I have STEM majors out there and that your experience is taking more than 2, it is perfectly okay. If I have student parents out there, if I have other students out there, that your journey at the community college is taking more than 2 years, it is okay. Once I transfer, I actually took an extra quarter at UCLA. So I graduated in 2 years and a quarter, which allowed me to double major. So no regrets there. And then, but when I transfer again, when I took an extra year when I did my master's program. So my actual college journey, I was in school for 9 years, but this entire journey here took about 19 years. And this is my personal experience. We are a diverse Asian American group, and this might not be your experience, but I want you to think about your own college journey. What are some privileges that you enjoy? And what are some intersectional identity that are either visible or invisible that might alter that journey in some way? And how do we find resources and communities to support us? In sharing this journey with you, I want to share the 3 tips that I learned along the way that I think might be helpful to you all. The first thing is seek mentorship. Connect with faculty, go to faculty office hours. In research, it shows that Asian American students are less likely to interact with their faculty due to the model minority myth. Because we believe in our individual achievement rather than systemic barriers. So you'll see that mental health wise, or in terms of seeking mentorship, Asian American students are more likely to quote unquote take this on alone. Again, Center for Community College Partnership, of course, seek peer advisorship, peer mentorship, I think, or give out or be a mentor, because that's going to help you make a difference, find purpose in lifting one another up in your community. The second thing is community. Definitely build a community of support. The friends that I keep close are the people that I actually transfer with. Even though we went into different majors, they were my go-to group when I had a bad day. Pay it forward and get involved in clubs and student government, because that's going to help in terms of application, but in terms of advocacy and really providing representation for the Asian American community. Just a fun story about how important community is. In my first quarter at UCLA, I actually missed my first final. Completely missed it. I show up on a Thursday, enter the class, nobody was in class. I start crying. I ran into the CCCP office. Alfred was there, and I was just bawling like, I can't believe it. I was doing so well. And Alfred was like, calm down. Here's what you need to do. Okay. And so I actually eventually reached out to the faculty and explained the situation. And because I've been doing well in class, he realized that it's not an excuse. So I was able to get an incomplete and take the exam in the following quarter. So that brings me to the third point. It's always ask. At that point, I could have stopped and say, oh my God, I'm never going to take this final, right? But you never know what the answer is unless you ask. So ask for support, ask for clarification, ask for extension, ask about the opportunity. What is the worst answer you can get, right? It is a no, but it will always be a no unless you ask. So those are the 3 takeaways that I hope you bring with you. Now, my life story took a little bit longer than I had hoped, but I do want to just spend a quick minute talking about anti-Asian racism and then move on to past, present, and future of what this might mean to us. So anti-racism, past, present, and future. How are you, your family, or your friends affected by the COVID-19 pandemic and the racist rhetoric that has surfaced this time? You don't have to answer it, just think about it. There are some historical events that I don't have time to highlight, but anti-Asian racism is not new. History continues to inform our racist rhetoric. And what happened is that most of the time, we do not get to talk about this enough, okay? Some of the things that I might say here might hurt, but you know, the largest mass lynching happened in 1871 in LA when 18 Chinese immigrants were hanged and tortured in Chinatown. Okay, there's the anti-Filipino riots in the 1929s and 1930s, the Japanese American incarceration, the death of Vincent Chin, the Muslim ban, the shooting in Georgia, where 6 Asian women died in a mass shooting. 84-year-old Thai immigrant who was violently attacked and actually eventually died. An 89-year-old Chinese woman who was set on fire, who someone was, I can go on, and I'm not gonna burden you with all of that, but we definitely need to talk about how our history in the United States continues to inform the racist rhetoric now. And this is my final takeaway. I'm going to end it here, but think about how our present action will impact our future. I want to encourage everyone to at least take an ethnic studies or Asian American studies class. Kathy Park Hong, I give you some quotes here. Racial self-hatred is seeing yourself whites see you, which turns into your own worst enemy. Your only defense is to be hard on yourself, which becomes compulsive and therefore a comfort to peck yourself to death. So if we do not understand our own experience from our minoritized perspective, then we're always looking through the framework of our oppressor. So take an ethnic studies class, empower yourself. It's a product of a strong social justice framework. And if we do not take these classes, they will disappear. And it will take away the hard work that has been done throughout the years to bring these programs about. Be an anti-racist. This is Ibram Kendi's book. What's the problem with being not racist? It is a claim that signifies neutrality. I am not racist, but neither am I aggressively against racism. And to stand in solidarity is to not just be not racist, is to stand in solidarity and be anti-racist. And lastly, I think it will help you transition into your next session, is that you need to prioritize your physical and mental health. And because the first wealth is health, by Ralph Waldo Emerson. Mental health and health in general is something that is stigmatized in the Asian American communities, and we don't want to talk about it, but it is an important way for us to process some of these racist rhetorics that we've been hearing, but it is also an important part of education. You do not do this alone. Education takes a village, and please take care of yourself so that you can build on that community. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sherry. Always, I mean, I don't tell you this enough because, you know, it goes to your head. I just love you. That's all I want to tell you. Love you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if, you know, just if we can have a little love shown to Sherry, either through emotion, the emoticons or in the chat. You know, she's always gonna be part of the CCCP family. And she's always someone that I definitely rely upon to have those conversations and to create spaces such as this one. And I know that, you know, you definitely create those spaces, and we are I know that I am better off with you in those spaces. Thank you. All right, we have, sorry, we're gonna move on just to try to stay closer to the time, but Luca, if you are ready, we can start. And Luca, there's also Derek, who's gonna be co-presenting.
Hi everyone. So now I have the honor and privilege of introducing Max Pereira, who is a PhD student in education, but particularly higher education and organizational change here at UCLA. He earned his Master of Education in Student Affairs at UCLA, as well as a BS in Bioengineering at the University of California, Riverside. His research interests center on two distinct, though related, foci: racism on college campuses and race, as well as sexual violence on college campuses, particularly as it relates to queer students of color. As the graduate student researcher at CARE, he will be assisting in the implementation of sexual violence prevention programming, as well as conducting research, evaluation, and assessment of prevention education for the CARE program. His research is primarily informed by critical race theory, intersectionality, and quantitative critical theory. Prior to his work at CARE, he worked as an assistant resident director at UCLA Residential Life and also has experience in ethnic, gender, and sexuality programming, as well as violence prevention education. When he's not doing research and attempting to dismantle oppressive systems, he's usually cuddling with his cat. So everyone, please welcome me. Please join me in welcoming Max with a round of applause.
Thank you, Luca. Luca is one of our department's volunteers and is a lovely human being. So I'm so excited to see you, Luca, and thank you for the lovely introduction. I'm going to share my screen if that's okay, because we do have a PowerPoint, Derek and I. And let me go on present mode here. Can you all see that? Derek, can you see it? Okay. So thank you for that great introduction, Luca. As Luca was saying, my name is Max. I work for the UCLA CARE program. CARE stands for Campus Assault Resources and Education. So we're a confidential resource center at UCLA for survivors of sexual violence, intimate partner violence, and stalking. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about sexual violence, but we're going to talk more broadly about Asian American mental health and looking at historical and contemporary violence and how that has shaped Asian American mental health and experiences. But I'm co-presented today with a lovely human being from our department whose name is Derek. So I'm going to let him talk about himself for a second here.
Hi, my name is Derek. I am the Prevention Education Coordinator at UCLA CARE program. I've been working at CARE office for about 3 years now. My first 2 years was at UC Riverside as an undergraduate student. And then my third year was during my master's program here at UCLA. And so now I'm working full-time as the program coordinator. My undergraduate major was Asian American Studies. So I have a really big heart, and Asian American Studies has a really big place in my heart. And I really do enjoy learning and teaching about the history of Asian Americans in the United States. So I'm really glad to be here today to talk to you more about Asian American mental health and how, the effects of history and contemporary violence.
Yeah, and I think Cherry left us off in a really good place too, because she was kind of alluding to some of the things that we're going to be talking about in depth. But before we get started into that content, Derek, I don't know if you want to take us through this.
Yeah, so the content that we are going over in this presentation are difficult topics. We're going to be talking about oppression, intergenerational trauma, violence, and also mental health. So, take care of your mental health in any way you see fit, including if you need to turn off your camera, if you need to go out and reach out to a friend, or even just leaving the presentation. And know that there are resources in your community and at UCLA some of which we're going to be going over at the end of the presentation.
Thanks. Before we get started, I do want to acknowledge the land that Derek and I are currently residing on. I don't know about, we're probably joining from a diverse array of places, but hopefully you are familiar with the indigenous peoples that you are currently, whose land you're currently occupying. But we do wish to acknowledge the Gabrielino Tongva peoples as the traditional caretakers of Tovangar. As a land grant institution, we pay our respects to the Hunukvitam, Ahihirom, and Eyuhinkem, past, present, and emerging, and are grateful to have the opportunity to work for and with the Tarahatam in this place. Okay. So as an overview, we're going to be talking about, Derek's going to take us through some of the history of Asian Americans in the United States and some of the things that I feel like you probably have already talked about a little bit today. So some of the narratives, the model minority myth, where does that come from? The perpetual foreigner stereotype. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about contemporary racism and violence and how has that been shaping Asian American mental health. And then we'll conclude by talking about some of the community resources that exist, both in Los Angeles and also UCLA specifically.
So Asian Americans in the United States have had a really rich history over the last 200-ish years. And it really starts off to meet labor demands in the United States, specifically cheap labor demands. So, agriculture, railroads, and factories. So as you know, a lot of the transcontinental railroads were built by Chinese Americans or Chinese immigrants during that time, I should say. And, with that, cheap labor exploitation, there was a lot of backlash from American workers who had required higher wages. And so prompted a ban on Chinese immigration. That being said, though, with a ban on Chinese immigration, they needed more cheap labor. And so began importation of other cheap labors from other Asian countries. So Japan, Korea, Philippines. And it created this cycle of Asian migration ban, and then Asian migration again from a different country. And because of this, it really created a certain stereotype of what the Asian person looked like and was. And so a lot of Asian people during that time, specifically Chinese Americans during that time, lived in Chinatown. And Chinatown was known as a very filthy and a really dense populated area. And so a lot of Chinese people during that time were visualized as filthy, job stealing, and yellow peril. So yellow peril is this idea and fear of the East. So this is an example. This is a cartoon by Thomas Nast. He was a cartoonist for the Harper's Bazaar, I want to say it was. And so he did over 2,000 cartoons. And a lot of them were depictions of Chinese Americans as, really racist cartoons of Chinese Americans. And so this was just one in the San Francisco Wasp in 1881. And it's basically the Chinese man having a monopoly over the different industries in the United States. So if you notice, I actually separated into two distinct parts of time. So before 1965 and after 1965. And this is significant because this shift in Asian American identity really came about after the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965. And the Nationality Act only allowed Asian immigrants to immigrate if they were skilled in labor. So think doctors, nurses, engineers, and professors. And because of this, it basically led to the creation of the model minority myth. I know Cherry had mentioned a little bit about the model minority myth, but the reason why it was created was because of this Nationality Act in 1965. And because of this creation, it created this idea that all Asian Americans achieve occupational and academic success. However, the model minority only really represents a particular set of Asian Americans, mainly East Asians, and erases the experiences of other Asian Americans that have oppressive experiences. So we can see that API academic attainment, for example, is not the same across ethnic groups. According to AAPI data, Taiwanese Americans versus Vietnamese Americans, 77.7% of Taiwanese Americans had a bachelor's degree or higher, compared to 29.6% of Vietnamese Americans. And so we can see how academic attainment is different across different levels. And that being said, the modern minority is intentionally constructed by individuals who want to uphold the white supremacy. And so we can see in this Time magazine that was published in 1987, which is a decade or two after 1965, Asian Americans had already been solidified as the modern minority by this time.
Yeah, and I would add too that, as Derek was talking about, and also I'll say really quickly, we got a message in the chat. I can't monitor the chat and talk at the same time. So Derek, if you could look at it, and then conversely, when Derek's talking, I'll look at it. But I would add too that, right, there are different, what we might call in Asian critical race theory, transnational contexts that shape different Asian American experiences, right? So for the reasons for migration, or the push-pull factors for migration for Taiwanese Americans, are very different than for Vietnamese Americans. And that affects socioeconomics, it affects education, those kinds of things, and ultimately affects mental health as well, right? The kinds of traumatic experiences that shape certain people's migration patterns. So thank you for that history, Derek. I really appreciate it. And I think it's important because it sets the context for today, right? Thinking about how Asian Americans are racialized today, before and during the COVID pandemic, and how that has shaped our experiences as Asian Americans, and also mental health broadly. So while a lot of media attention has been paid recently, I think, to COVID-related violence, I think it's important to note that, as Derek and Sherry brought up, right, that violence against Asian Americans has existed as long as Asian Americans have been in the United States, that it takes many forms in both physical and verbal, racial microaggressions and macroaggressions. And so I think it's important that we label these things and talk about them so that we can kind of have the language to be able to describe the experiences we have. So one of the things that I want to talk a little bit about are what microaggressions are. So maybe you've heard that term before. Sue defines them as brief and commonplace daily verbal, behavioral, or environmental indignities, whether intentional or unintentional, that communicate hostile, derogatory, or negative racial slights or insults towards people of color. It's really interesting where microaggressions come from, the literature. They come from a psychiatrist whose name is Chester Pierce, who in the 1960s was trying to understand the long-term effects of racism that his Black male clients were experiencing. And so there's different types of microaggressions. One of them are micro-invalidations. So micro-invalidation might be something like saying, oh, well, you're not even really an American, right? Because you're Asian, right? That might be a micro-invalidation. A micro-insult or it could be a micro-invalidation or a micro-insult might be, oh, you speak English really well, right? So these are everyday forms of racism, and that's what's key to a microaggression. It's an everyday form of racism that can have cumulative negative effects on our mental health. Aside from microaggressions, obviously, there has been greater attention paid, justifiably so, to pandemic-related violence. And so, the statistics are relatively fresh and they're kind of new. So generally speaking, it's seen to be about 145% increase by some measures in the largest cities in America, and hate crimes amongst Asian Americans. And so I think this chart kind of illustrates that. You can see the light blue is 2019, the dark blue is 2020. And you can see in New York, in Los Angeles, in America's biggest cities, hate crimes against Asian Americans are on the rise, even while hate crimes on the whole have decreased. So hate crimes as a whole, I think, have gone down, I want to say like 16%, something like that. But hate crimes against Asian Americans have increased by 45%, right? 145%. I think it's important to recognize, though, that, you know, yes, these hate crimes are occurring and they have an acute effect on the people who experience them. But I think it's also important to recognize that these hate crimes are also having an effect on the Asian American population in America as a whole, right? It poses this kind of existential threat, this fear of, you know, are my parents going to be attacked? Am I going to be attacked? This fear of having to see racist and violent imagery and having to sit with that and see it and live it, right? It kind of gives some vicarious trauma. And so while there hasn't been a whole lot of research looking into that aspect of the effects of pandemic-related violence on mental health, I know that Derek and I, when we were prepping for this presentation, we're both talking about our own personal experiences with this and how, you know, seeing these violent representations in media has been hurtful for our mental health, and trying to think through, you know, how we can validate and uphold our own experiences. And I think it's something that we need to discuss more broadly and have more open discussions about. That being said, those who experience violence, we do know have higher symptoms of anxiety, depression, and sleep disorders. And we also know that that harms not just like the person who is hurt, but also like the communities that they come from as well. I think it's also important to note that this quotation from Audre Lorde, "There is no such thing as a single issue struggle because we do not live single issue lives." Audre Lorde was talking about Malcolm X when she said that. She said that Malcolm understood that concept. And so I do want to dig a little bit into this idea of what intersectionality is and how it can shape our understanding of anti-Asian violence and mental health. So intersectionality is this framework that was first written about by Kimberly Crenshaw, although it's been, I think, thought through in academia for a really long time. But what she was talking about was the particular political struggles, the representations in media, and the institutions that systematically exclude and harm Black women. The institutions that tend to focus on, you know, how the racial civil rights movement had focused on racial issues, on Blackness, how the feminists were focusing on white womanhood, and how these discourses were simultaneously excluding the unique issues particular to Black women, right? The sum is greater than its parts. I think that's important that we recognize and talk about intersectionality in trying to understand Asian American violence and mental health, because we know that it's not merely a racial or an ethnic issue, but that these forms of violence, and we talk about this a lot in our office, working particularly with sexual violence, are very much intertwined, not just with race, but also with gender, with queerphobia, with ableism, with classism, and with all other systems of domination. So when we're looking at Asian American women in violence in particular, you know, I was talking about how there's been an increase in hate crimes. Well, one source, or, you know, this one in the Stop AAPI Hate, which keeps track of this kind of data, has found that 2/3 of the people who have experienced hate crimes, Asian Americans who have experienced hate crimes, are women. And similarly, we've seen how mass shootings, for instance, that took the lives of 6 Asian American women and 8 individuals total in Atlanta, how harm and violence is shaped by both racism and sexism, right? It's not just about them being Asian American, it's not just about them being women, it's about how their being an Asian American woman has shaped how they're perceived within society. We also know that, you know, outside of just like the universe of pandemic-related stress and also violence, that Asian American women have particular experiences that harm mental health. So though understudied, we know that 20% of Asian American women have experienced intimate partner or domestic violence, and that these rates are disproportionate amongst Southeast Asian women, with, in particular, Vietnamese and Filipino survey respondents experiencing the highest rates. And I think it's also important to note that that both societal and those interpersonal stressors can have a major impact on the mental health of Asian American women. And we know that Asian American women, compared to other populations, have higher rates of depression, suicidal ideation, and simultaneously tend to underutilize mental health resources, right? And this is all shaped by racist discourses, institutions, et cetera, that intersect with sexist discourses, institutions, et cetera. So talking about resources, Derek is going to take us a little bit through some of that information.
So yeah, like Max mentioned in the previous slide, Asian Americans tend to underutilize mental health resources and resources in general, right? So an example is that 69% of Asian Americans who were diagnosed with a depressive disorder did not further seek out mental health treatment compared to 40% of white Americans. And so there's a couple of reasons why there's an underutilization of mental health resources. One reason is cultural stigmas, right? So there's a stigma around mental health in the Asian American community, and it often prevents individuals from actually seeking help and mental health resources, right? And so I have an example. So the Vietnamese word for crazy is also the same word as for mental health. I was supposed to get the actual word, but one of my Vietnamese friends didn't respond to me. So sorry about that. But yeah, so in colloquial Vietnamese, those two words are the same, right? And so you can see how language and culture kind of shape this idea of mental health and how it prevents people and individuals from actually seeking help. Mental health issues are also often hidden to save face. So saving face is this concept that's basically to save you and your family from embarrassment. And because mental health issues and mental health, seeking mental health resources are seen as this kind of embarrassing and needing to get help kind of ideal. Another reason, other than cultural stigma, is also the structural barriers that are present in the United States that prevent people from actually receiving the resources in the first place. So unable to access the mental health resources, right? And so, like we said, while we have this idea that Asian Americans, are successful and have academic achievement, there are many Asian Americans that are low income and may not have health insurance in the first place. With that being said, those who might have health insurance might have language barriers, right? So counseling and therapy, they might not have, a multilingual, multicultural therapist available for them. Immigration status, right? So seeking help might be unattainable for someone who is undocumented or is afraid of being deported. We also have the lack of cultural humility and cultural understanding. Like before, like with language barriers, a therapist might not even understand the issues, the intersectional issues that a person might face, and therefore failing to actually provide them with the mental health resources that they need. And furthermore, there's also gender norms that prevent people from seeking help in the first place, right? And so for example, Asian American men might have a false a sense of toxic masculinity, right? And so it is unmasculine to actually seek for help and therefore not seeking mental health services. And women also have an expectation in the Asian family to serve the family and the community. And because of this, they feel like they cannot actually access the resources for themselves. And so this is just a couple of examples of how, while there are some resources, the resources do not actually center the experiences of Asian Americans and Asian American women, and therefore failing to support them. Yeah, and so We do have a couple of resources around here in Los Angeles as well as at UCLA. So we have the Center for the Pacific Asian Family, and it's a multilingual, multicultural domestic violence and sexual assault resource for Asian Americans. They have a 24-hour hotline, and it's multilingual. So they have many different API languages that are available. We also have CARE. So CARE is a resource on campus, not just for students, but also for staff and faculty. And we also have a 24-hour hotline as well. There's also UCLA Counseling and Psychological Services, which is mental health and counseling services. They also have a 24-hour hotline. And note that CARE and CAPS are both confidential services, meaning that the information you share with their counselors and our advocates are legally protected. And we also have some nonprofit organizations as well. API Equality is really focused on LGBT equality within the API community. Asian Americans Advancing Justice is a law group that provides law aid and counseling and resources for immigrant and low-income non-English speaking communities. And like mentioned before, we also have Stop AAPI Hate, which keeps track of violent hate crimes against Asian Americans and Pacific Islanders. And they also have a lot of data as well.
And something I would add to that too is that, the reason we offer these resources is because when we're talking about kind of the barriers, one of the things was that there are a lack of resources for people who sit at the intersection of various social identities, right? Or who have various experiences. So for Asian Americans, particularly immigrant women who are experiencing domestic violence or intimate partner violence, having a resource like CPAF where that person can call and speak to an advocate, a confidential advocate in their own language is a really profound thing. And so I hope that in seeing these kinds of that these resources exist, even if you're not personally utilizing them, that you're seeing, that these are opportunities, these agencies for transformational kind of resistance. There are opportunities to try and get involved with these, and also to recognize and validate the experiences of our peers to try and uplift them as well, and to offer these resources too. Okay. And I think that's all that we have. And those are some citations if anyone wants to do some reading. Okay. But I think that's all that we've got for you all today.
Thank you so much. That was perfect. I think, it's like the universe aligning everything together. I think, in terms of where Sherry started us off and where you continue this conversation. And it is a conversation, and I want, make sure that everyone who's in this space, please, your voices are important. If there's any question that anyone has or a comment, if you want to either put it on the chat, or you can unmute yourself at this point, that would be great. And if not, we'll move along to our next presenters. But I do want to say publicly to Max and to Derek, thank you so much for sharing space with us, sharing such important information, and that you create also spaces throughout the campus where these conversations can be had. And just thank you, Max, for responding to the request. I truly appreciate that. And I know that we're gonna collaborate in the future. So I'm looking forward to continuing to work alongside the two of you. So thank you. All right. I believe we have now Maxine, I think. Yeah. And I'm so glad that Max brought up, the concept of being an ally and allyship and, solidarity work. So that's what's next.
Okay, hi everyone. Continuing on the theme of self-care, allyship, mental health, all of these other things we've been talking about. Our next segment is an activity that me, Gloria, Sophie, and Luca, peer advisors, have prepared just for us to kind of process everything we've been hearing, talk about them together, and discuss ways that we can take care of ourselves and put those things that we've learned into practice. So I'll let Sophie and Luca introduce themselves as well.
All right, hey everybody, you already know me. I'm Sophie, an English major, African American Studies minor, triple CP advisor. It's my second year, just graduated UCLA. It's nice of you all to be here and participate in this activity. I'm gonna pass it on to Luca.
Hi everyone, just to reintroduce myself real quickly. My names are Luca and Isa. My pronouns are they, he, and I am majoring in philosophy and double minoring in LGBTQ studies and gender studies. So I do have more of a focus in LGBTQ and QT BIPOC identities. So yeah, I'm excited to share space with everyone.
Sweet. Okay. And I said this earlier, but I also graduated like Sophie. I double majored in poli-sci and comm, and I am very passionate about mental health. So that's why we're doing this activity, so that we can have a discussion with everyone. So please feel free to participate in the chat or we've made a Padlet board. So you can, actually maybe I'll share it just so everyone knows what it looks like. And so this is what it looks like. And we're gonna go through some like discussion questions and just kind of chat together and figure it out together. So you can feel free to add a little thing here. And then if you see anything that resonates with you, feel free to give it a heart as well. Okay, so let's get into our little slides. I think it's really important to share experiences and connect with talking about mental health, hardships that we're going through, trauma. I know we talked about mental health earlier, both Cherry, Derek, and Max did. Personally, I have had experiences with depression, had anxiety like my entire life. And it's definitely like a thing that I think about all the time, and especially in terms of intersections with my identities. I know that I'm Chinese American. I know that my Chinese family is very uncomfortable with the whole thing, doesn't like to talk about it. It's hard to talk about family entirely, and how they connect with that. And in terms of other intersectional identities we have, it's important to locate support services and I think share with each other just to feel less alone and share things that we can do together. So here's some trauma-informed affirmations to start us off, just so everyone remembers that we're all doing the best that we can. And Sophie, Luca, do you have any experience with affirmations or anything in the last slide?
I would just say that like one of my biggest affirmations is just like constantly letting myself know that like I believe in myself and my abilities, and just like always remembering that like my health comes first, especially when it comes to like just school. Like school has been very stressful, and then just going through a lot of other personal things too. It's like really important to remember like keeping that balance between like my health, which is I think most important, because you know, if you're not feeling well, you're not also going to be able to like perform as well as you want to. So I think that's something I'm always constantly like reminding myself of, and that like I'm thankful for my body for like taking care of me too.
I love this last one. I trust the strength of my body to hold me today. Like, I love it. I'm all over it. There's like a poem by Rupi Kaur, I think, that kind of is an affirmation for me. And it's just about, you know, stop dwelling on like, you know, oh, I used to be this way and I was so good at this, or in the future, I need to be better at that, and just focus on appreciating who you are right now, because we're always living in either the past or the future, and we kind of just need to like love ourselves. because it's a full-time job, and just kind of continue with that motion.
I love that. I love words of affirmation are totally my like love language. So I think it's really important to like give that to yourself. Not wait for other people to like give you what you can also help. This is just a quote from Stephen Yoon, the actor from Minari. This is a big article in New York Times, I want to say, where he said, "Sometimes I wonder if the Asian American experience is what it's like when you're thinking about everyone else, but nobody else is thinking about you." So just again, another reminder to, think about yourself, think about your own community, how we can take care of each other, ourselves, create community health, and to not feel guilty about doing that, while also remaining in solidarity and intersectional solidarity with other communities and our own intersectional identities. So these are a bunch of things that are stereotypes, assumptions, forms of racism against Asian Americans. Derek, Max, and Cherry did a great job going over a lot of them, such as model minority myth, the feeling of being a perpetual foreigner, yellow peril, stereotypes of being submissive or hardworking within the model minority myth, different gender ideas for men, women, and these are all things that affect our own mental health, how we take care of ourselves as well. So things to keep in mind. And then same thing that Derek and Max already went over. Oppression has real physical, cognitive, and emotional effects on us, not just, feeling sad a little bit. They're like real health and wellness, concrete outcomes that we can feel. So it's really important to take stock and figure out how we can practice self-care, not just in like a superficial, going to do a face mask and like take a bubble bath kind of way, but deeper things that continually take care of our own well-being, nourish ourselves so that we can feel good, help our communities, help each other, and keep going. So we have a little activity kind of going through. So this is something that I think that we can kind of talk through, share our own experiences, and hopefully keep going. And thank you all for participating in the Padlet, by the way. I see a lot of people there, and thank you for being vulnerable and sharing your feelings there as well. There's a lot of stress, pressure with the whole transfer thing, and I hope that this can be a little bit helpful. So I think the first step is to take stock and evaluate your current coping skills. How do you typically deal with things? What do you do? You might not even notice this. So I think it's really important to feel like conscious and mindful, not just kind of like reacting. Some positive examples are deep breathing, stretching, going for a walk. I know that going for a walk has become really important to me during COVID. Like my daily evening walk is like imperative. It's like a big thing that I rely on. And then some negative things as well. I know that, for example, I used to bite my fingernails. That was like a bit of a negative coping mechanism. I tend to skip meals when I'm feeling really, really stressed. I just forget to eat. And that's a really big like red flag for me personally, because I really enjoy food. I think food is so delicious. It's like a hobby. So when I just like completely lose my appetite, that's when everyone knows that something is wrong in my life. Luca, Sophie, or anyone in the chat, do you have any experiences looking at these?
Definitely biting my nails. I don't even know if it's possible to be like an overeater and also skip meals, but I do both. So yeah, that's definitely something. I do pace a lot too sometimes. But I like stretching, deep breathing, listening to music for sure. That helps me.
Yeah, and I guess for me, like I guess in regards to the negative ones, I would admit, I hate to admit this, but acting aggressively, I think that's just something that like definitely happens. Like I just get kind of irritable, and like also skipping meals. I think those two are like some of my coping mechanisms that I don't really think too much about, that I should definitely work on. But in regard to the positive, I would definitely say like Pre-COVID, I used to like always go for a walk if like I was just really stressed out. And once I'm like done with my walk, I feel like so much better. But now it's usually like sitting outside and just relaxing or engaging in a hobby. So like I'll make jewelry or like play video games. I think those are like my biggest like kind of just like coping skills, I would say. Like it just makes me kind of just makes my brain stop like worrying about everything, and I kind of just like get into like my own little world, no thoughts, just yeah. So I think that's something I love to do.
I love that. And thank you everyone sharing as well. Also, Luca sells earrings. So you should all, I don't know if you're like in the market for some cute accessory, you can go check that out. But yeah, I think it's good to just kind of look at what you're currently doing. I totally do the same thing too, where like I get irritable, and that was something I didn't even realize I did until I like can stop and breathe and be like, I'm being a little bit meaner than I usually am. Probably need to go for a walk or something, and then come back. So I think that's a great first step. And then next, you can kind of think about what you're doing to support your well-being on a day-to-day basis. So on the left, we have 7 dimensions of wellness that we can kind of talk through and some examples of what it means to take care of them. So your physical well-being, your emotional well-being, spiritual or existential, professional, social, financial, and psychological. I think with something like this, personally, I feel like I am always trying to achieve balance, like never quite meeting it. I know that in school, professional was always like my top priority. If I had to like lose out on physical stuff like sleeping or exercise or meals, like no question, I would do that to study or to go work or something like that. I would also maybe put off like social time and be like, maybe like let's have lunch when I'm less busy or something, and avoid catching with people that way. But I think it's really important to think about the daily activities that like build you up, and how you can implement those into your routine. A couple of these that I really love personally, therapy psychologically is like so helpful. I had a CAPS therapist at UCLA. She was really, really wonderful. I know a lot of people have less than stellar experience with CAPS, but I had a great one. And she helped me understand so many things about myself and learn more about how to improve and take better care of myself and my loved ones as well. And then I think also just trying to maintain that balance between professional life is something I've learned as well, managing my time to like turn off notifications after like 7 p.m. or something like that, and make it wait for the next day, because most likely something catastrophic won't happen. And then, like we said, with affirmations, to acknowledge my own accomplishments and help myself emotionally. But yeah, what are some things that y'all do to support your well-being on a day-to-day basis?
A disconnect from electronics is something I need to do. But yeah, therapy, I think I do want to emphasize what you were saying. Like, I think if you, for y'all, I would recommend go and try and find your like psychological therapy resources at your community college, and try and find those, just because I do think it has helped me, and it can be incredibly beneficial. So I would recommend y'all do that. And also time management skills as well, because I feel like I get so overwhelmed and I need to like set boundaries and like be able to be like, okay, I'm at full capacity. Like I can't do this or I can't do that. But yeah, I think that those are the main ones for me.
Yeah, I would also agree for me too. Like the main ones are like psychological and professional. With like professional, I would say that like time management skills kind of like seep into all of like these like categories. I would say just because like you're managing like what time you spend for yourself and what time you spend doing, whatever else you need to do and schoolwork, work. So I think that's kind of like something I really learned. to do for myself, and it's helping me so much. And although like at times it feels like a bit excessive, like I have like 2 agendas, my calendar on my laptop, and I keep daily lists. Even though like it is kind of a lot of work to like keep up with time, it does really help me, like, I think, just understand myself and like my position with time. I don't know if that makes sense. And then with the psychological, I would say I also need to disconnect from electronics more often, especially now with like Zoom University. I'm always on my laptop like 24/7. And I do journal, so I think that's really helpful for me. Or even I would say like art, like drawing and painting. I think that's also been helpful for me. And then lastly, I do talk to like a psychiatrist and a therapist. And I also take medication, which is like highly stigmatized, but that honestly really has helped me a lot in my like journey with my like mental health. So yeah.
Definitely. I'm really glad you mentioned medication, Luca, because I was also on medication for my anxiety and depression for several years. And it was a really great move. I also think it's important here, personally for myself, to like emotionally give myself grace and like forgiveness. Sometimes I just have like a bad day. Sometimes I have like a bad week, and I like don't eat well. I don't sleep well. I don't manage my time well. I don't talk to any friends. I like spend too much time on like takeout. And I think it's really important to, after like a bad day, bad week, bad time, whatever, to be okay with that, forgive myself, give myself grace, to move forward and trust that I can keep going and that it's not like catastrophic for the rest of time. So next up, those are some kind of like daily things. These are some more crisis emergency things. So maybe when I have like a panic attack or something unexpected happens in my life that just sends me spiraling, you can kind of, before that terrible crisis situation happens, think about what you're going to do when a crisis inevitably pops up in your life. Unfortunately, it's just part of life. And think about how you can support yourself by staying calm, practicing positive self-talk, seeking out healthy social support, and keeping an eye on your own mood and how to help that, as well as your own resilience. So does anyone here have any experience with these? See Sophie talking about social support.
That's so important because, like, okay, like, there are some toxic people out there, and they can just, like, suck your soul from your body. So, be with those people who are, like, affirming and positive, give you good vibes, and validating, because it's so easy for them to like write off your feelings or what's happening to you isn't real, and so it's important to kind of seek people who are going to support you and give you the empathy and compassion that you need.
Yeah, and I would definitely like to add on to that. I think the biggest one for me is social support. And like, I guess to relate it to like my personal experiences, I did have like a really bad experience earlier this year at UCLA. And I think like my go-to was social support. Like that's really what got me through. And like even seeking that support from like CCCP and just like various people on campus and organizations that like really helped me out. I think that was like my go-to like main just like main support basically.
Yeah, I love that. And to, I guess, add a little plug, we have a GroupMe. So if you are looking for some social support, you can totally join our GroupMe and we can be your social support. I'm also seeing in the Padlet that some folks are sharing experiences just having difficulty during our current collective crisis of a pandemic, being distant from loved ones, when you want to spend quality time with them, when you want to spend physical touch, when you want to like hug them, cuddle, all those good things. And I empathize. And that's always really hard because sometimes things that you want to do to help you aren't available for you. So you have to find other ways to cope during that. And lastly, before we maybe transition over to Padlet and go over that a little bit more, just wanted to talk a little bit about allyship for anyone here who is, for everyone here who has intersectional identities and are thinking about other communities who are experiencing things that we may not personally experience. It's really important to learn how to be a good ally, to undertake that like active, constant process of unlearning, reevaluating, and figure out how to build relationships and trust other people, build accountability, and really support each other, because all of us, even if we're not the same exact identities, share a lot of similar experiences, and it's important to support each other through that. So just some good things to remember in terms of allyship here. I don't know if anyone here has any experience with that. I think personally, as an East Asian American woman, I remember having a really important moment in community college when I took a sociology class and we learned about Asian American activists during the civil rights movement. And that was like the very first time that I had ever heard that during the civil rights movement in the 50s, 60s, that like other people of color were involved. It sounds really, really stupid when I say it like that, but I had never learned about like, I think her name was Yuri Koshiyama. She was a really big ally of Malcolm X, and like that was really cool to like see photos of them walking side by side, read her work. And so I think that was really important for me in my own journey of allyship and seeing like a path to amplify other voices, and to step out of my own identities and privileges to like help others as well. My boyfriend is also Latino, so that's like an experience that I obviously don't share. I don't get like pulled over when I'm driving, for example. And that's something that I have had to learn to listen, and really find ways to support in something that I have no personal experience or understanding of. Sophie, Luca, anyone in the chat, do you have anything to share here?
Yeah, I guess just to like add on, you know, like allyship is about listening, but also like, you know, being receptive to other people's like experiences and learning. And I think most importantly, like it's not about like centering yourself and being like, oh, like look at me, like I'm an ally. I'm like so good, you know. I think it's about like also protecting others, you know, when you can, and when you see that, like, for example, like you have the privilege to stand up for another person while like in a situation where, you know, for example, someone is being harassed. I think that's also an important thing. Like it's not just like a passive thing, it's you have to be active in your allyship.
Yeah, thank you for that, Luca. I'm gonna move over to our Padlet now just to finish off with some more input and discussion from everyone here. And maybe we can go through and see anything that really resonates with us, Luca and Sophie, and I don't know if we have anything else to add on to it. We definitely want to break at 12. So I also want to note that we have a care package on our website as well. So this is a great little like workbook to like a journaling exercise for you basically. So you can look at yourself, go through and really think about, maybe take some time and quiet yourself to think about how you can take care of yourself afterwards. And if you want to continue the conversation at all, we are going to have peer advisor circles after at 3:15 to 4. So we'll definitely be there to talk more. But thank you everyone for being so engaged and vulnerable on the Padlet with us. I appreciate you sharing how you're feeling. I definitely related a lot to a lot of this expectations pressure thing. When I was in community college, I know that I had a lot of pressure from my family, my own expectations, and I know I felt really, really nervous and scared about balancing my responsibilities, believing in myself, and like being confident. And I know like my first year at UCLA, basically, I always felt like when I was like doing well on something, when I would have something go well, like an A, I would feel like something was going wrong, like the other shoe was going to drop and it was all going to end. So that's something that I definitely can relate to. Luca, Sophie, do you see anything here? I think with this support one, oh, sorry, Luca, do you want to go ahead?
It's okay. You could go first.
Okay, I'm just going to suggest for the support on jobs, internships, and stuff. I know that stuff is really, really hard. I'm in my post-grad job search phase, and it's very awful. So I relate to you. Remember to like take care of yourself, take breaks, and remember that it's kind of like a numbers thing sometimes. Sometimes it doesn't work out. But reach out to people you know. You never know whether it's an opportunity or someone who can just help you look through your resume or practice. I think it helps to feel like you're making like a concrete step. I started keeping a journal actually to write down what I was doing every day in my job search, and that helped me feel like I was actually doing anything, even if I wasn't getting like job offers. Okay, I think that is actually our time for today. So it's 12, which means that we are going on break. We are going to come back at 1 p.m. for our afternoon session. But I want to thank everyone for participating in the activity, on the Padlet, in the chat. Really appreciated, again, your vulnerability and like you taking the time to take stock with us. But feel free to leave the Zoom, come back at 1, have a snack, take a nap, take care of yourself in the meantime, because we've been on Zoom for a while, and we'll come back for more.
What an empowering morning. Thank you all. Just feeling very good right now. And very in community, and particularly to our peer advisors who you can just run this whole thing. I think I just go take a nap at this point, and just so much amazingness. Thank you, and thank you. We'll leave the room open, so if you want to leave your Zoom window open, you're more than welcome to go play some music. And if there's any questions you may want to ask, you can put them on the chat. And just I just want to add one more thing. Also, that although today is maybe not necessarily what usually in activities that are sponsored by universities to offer for community college students, often the conversation focuses more on those aspects of what my friend Rene Lozano calls transactional processes. Meaning, how do I fill this out? What is the best, advice to do this or that in terms of the application process? And our focus really has been more about building community and looking at all those other factors that impact your own journey as you are navigating these spaces, whether as of now in this virtual environment, or as when we go back in person. But and I really like that quote that Sherry had about our first wealth being held. I think in that aspect, I think what we're trying to focus on first is all of that, in trying to create an education experience that's transformational and that celebrates each of you and allows you to be successful, however you define that, in a way that at the same time uplifts you. So I really love this last section that Maxine, Sophie, and Luca did, and also I think Gloria was also part of the planning of this. That's just awesome. I mean, there were some good reminders in there for myself as well. So thank you. I truly appreciate that. And again, any questions you have, I do see, we didn't get to introduce some of our full-time staff. I do see Gabby. I don't know, Gabby, if you're there, you want to introduce yourself? I thought I saw Shirley earlier, but I don't know if I see her now. But Gabby, if you want to introduce yourself. Mitch is not there. Okay. All right. Well, again, take a break. Ask any questions you want in the chat. We'll try to answer those that we can. And keep in mind that this is not a one-time thing that we are this is just the start of the conversation. All right. Enjoy your break. We'll see you soon.